Yeah, and that's why I really think I think it was justified the decision to nuke Venezuela. Oh, we're live, by the way.
In the story you were reading. I agree. um, anyways, welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for some Dire discusses the Obama Gate and Gates plural, because there wasn't just one, honestly.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get into that in a second here.
And along with me is Fox Raviz, my producer and co-host. Thank you.
And supporter of nuking Venezuela in a story.
In Minecraft and StarMade.
Yes.
Yes, all of Venezuela, please join our StarMade server.
Yes.
We'd get our ass kicked. There's a lot of them there. They're really hungry, which means they're angry. So, Obamagate. This is hitting the news. It was in the top 4 trending on Twitter. And
that was like at some effort because there was only a couple billion tweets about it, so like it only got number 4. And then above it with like 1,000 tweets was Trumpgate. That was yesterday or the day before. Twitter's been doing the Lord's work. Those algorithms, man. It's funny because somebody like me, like the thing I went to school for, like programming, IT, that kind of like business stuff, like the dream would be like, oh, I'll get a job at like Twitter or Facebook. Like you can write like real AI and do like analytics. They got crazy service. Like they don't do any of that shit. All those algorithms, they might have done that at one point, but it's all fucking fake now. It is completely fake. None of those algorithms actually do a damn thing. They're all just manually set now. That's been so clear for so long. How would you feel if you were the guy at Twitter who wrote this just absolutely beautiful algorithm? It was able to take in all the data, it would sort stuff out, it would pick out what people wanted, it would like figure out what in their minds they wanted before they knew that they wanted. And then you set up this beautiful thing, and then the Twitter execs come by and they're like, yeah, no, like we just kind of want manual control over these levers. Like we don't want the platform to give the people what they want. We want the platform to give the people what we want. You just sit there like crying, like looking at your beautiful algorithm put in manual mode all the time.
That is very sad for anyone who's a programmer. But the topic today is Obamagate. So Obamagate's actually a really long story, but
it's also,
we're going to give it to you in pieces.
It's not just a long story. It's like all the stories. It's all the stories for the last 3.5 years.
But remember, Obama was the scandal-free president, according to CNN.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the IRS scandal. Definitely didn't spy on AP journalists and Fox News journalists, and definitely didn't give something like 10,000 guns to drug cartel terrorists.
2,000 were lost. Killed. They gave about 10,000 out. They lost 2,000 of them.
No. Dire,
I have the source right in front of me.
No, that's a lie.
I have the source in front of me.
Lost implies that there was an attempt to keep track of them.
Oh yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Like to have lost it, you have had to have wanted to keep track of it in the first place.
Failed to track in any possible way.
Yeah.
Is that better?
That's also called giving them away for free. Like there is a string of words that already means that.
For people who don't know what we're talking about, let's do this in a more structured fashion.
There is no way to do this in a structured fashion.
Let's not go through all the points at once, and then kind of let's start with one. So first off, Obama was considered the scandal-free president because the through line through all the stories we're about to cover was that the media refused to talk about them, and anyone who called him out for any of the things that we're about to talk about, the scandals that were throughout his presidency, the serious things that he and his administration did, he claimed, oh, I just wasn't aware of it. It was some other person that was guilty for it, if it was ever addressed at all in the media. Some of the ones where it was the Lois Lerner IRS scandal. So prior to the election, a bunch of nonprofits, mostly conservative ones, a lot of them were religious, were denied the ability to have the tax-free status so they could collect donations tax-free. or people could write their donations off on their taxes rather, and they harassed those businesses or those nonprofits.
Well, no, it wasn't just harassment. I mean, let's be specific. They audited them year after year after year. I remember watching those hearings actually, and the one lady that was kind of like the forefront of like the class action, like she went to go do congressional testimony, and she was like, "We got audited the last 4 years in a row." like and like that was the same story over and over and over again. The almost the entire audit department at the IRS during the Obama administration had been converted just to look at conservatives. They certainly did that with a lot of media personalities as well. Hannity likes to always cite that he's been audited every year for like the last 10 years, which is like statistically improbable.
Yes. So not only the auditing, but also when they applied for status in the first place, it was over 500 different nonprofits around the country were denied or had their process elongated by like 6 months to a year, which meant they missed the election cycle, right? And the questions they were asking, they sent like 10 pages of questions they had to respond, and then when they turned the 10 pages of answers in, they just sent another 10 pages or more of more questions that were stupid things like, what do you pray for? Like that fucking matters for when you're asking to be a nonprofit, right?
They're probably praying for tax exempt status. I guess.
But it was an example of how ridiculous it was. They were stringing these companies along, or these nonprofits along, so that they couldn't get the nonprofit status, so they couldn't then collect donations. In any case, so Obama blamed this all on Laura Lerner. Sorry, Lois Lerner. But she didn't just do this on her own. It wasn't that, and Obama wasn't just unaware of this going on, but he claimed he was, and it was all on the director of that one part of the IRS. She had all the power and no oversight. So the question is, if she had the ability to do this harassment, directing all of her people and her entire part of the IRS to do this constantly, which was deemed to be illegal, and she was fired for it, right? Why was there no oversight? That's still a failure on you. But what is a sign of is, and you're going to see a trend here, it was the Obama administration and different parts of it, or all the way to the top, regularly using government power to place their thumb on average Americans to make a political to have political results.
Well, not even just average Americans. It was clearly political enemies.
Yes.
It's putting their thumb on the scale of politics, using the powers of government, which are normally meant to, ensure the domestic tranquility and peace and all that sort of stuff. There's this old grimy document that describes it all. It's kind of boring read, but normally that's what the government levers of power are supposed to do. And as we've talked about multiple times on this show, when the type of government that Dyer and I would like is a government that is restrained and safe, no matter which party gets involved. What the Democrats, and Obama in particular, made the biggest headway towards creating was a government that is so powerful that the political enemies could never gain power again.
Yes. So Fast and the Furious, the scandal, it didn't even make the news till many years later. Didn't really start getting a lot of stories about it until Trump made office, and the DOJ was actually, being run by people who weren't patsies to Obama. But one of the things for to go back to the gun running, right? That was another scandal. This one shows the trend of not. So the first one was showing a trend of how the Obama administration was pushing pressure on the political pressure on Americans to get up political ends. They were willing to abuse the power of government for the political ends. The other one is how they were willing to do dangerous and illegal things, also again abusing government power. In this case, the Fast and Furious gun running scandal. They were selling weapons, giving weapons, but essentially to drug cartels and weapons traffickers in Mexico. And they said they were going to then try to track those weapons. Is what they said, so they can then find the buyers. But they didn't do that last part. So essentially, all they did was give many thousands of guns to drug cartels, arming the cartels that then went on to kill Americans and kill border guards. Yeah, those same weapons were eventually found at the scene of crimes in America and Mexico.
And inside the chest of a few of America's finest.
Yes. So they were willing to abuse their power to then, in a way that would clearly end up hurting Americans. But this also shows another trend that they're willing to lie about it and pretend they aren't aware of it. So Eric Holder...
These both also show another thing, too. It's not just what the Obama administration was willing to do. It's what the media was willing to do to aid
or not do.
Yes.
So Eric Holder was testified before Congress in May, I believe, of 2011, saying that there was no... explicitly, there was no gun walking, which was the gun running scandal, and he had no knowledge of the tactics being used by the ATF people in Arizona that were the ones that were running the operation Fast and the Furious.
You basically are like the equivalent for like you, I mean, you're also a different type of government employee, but like the equivalent would just be one of the generals being like, wait a second, you mean to tell me we've been at war in Afghanistan for 18 years? Who the hell authorized? I knew nothing about that. And then you go down to the next level, and they're like, I didn't know that was going on either. And like it just gets all the way down to like, you know, someone even lower level than you, and it's like, what were you doing? And you know, the equivalent would be too is I'd probably pick out some private and like, you know, it's his fault, he did it.
No, it is the equivalent. I don't know if you realize this, but they actually ended up blaming a specific single.
No, I know, that's what I was going for.
Agent. One agent apparently had the power to acquire 10,000 weapons and organize the giving of them to drug cartels. Apparently, one agent that was really on the lowest level had the ability to do all those things and took all the blame. No one else, even at the higher levels of the Arizona ATF, was aware of it, apparently. But the funny thing is, Eric Holder got caught in a lie because he received a memo that they were able to find in 2010 telling him about the Fast and Furious. Now he claims, I saw that they were doing the Fast and Furious. It was mentioned that they were doing it, but I didn't know what it meant. And that makes me think, okay, so again, oversight. You're a general, and you're like, you have a sergeant tell you, hey, we're doing Operation Gideon today. We're doing Operation Market Garden. And you're like, sounds cool.
Good job. Freedom. What's that?
And you just like nod your head. You have my support. That's good stuff you're doing there. If you don't know what they're talking about, you're still authorizing it. You're wrong.
I mean, like whoever the top generals are right now, it would just be like, you know, back at you roll the clock back to like 2003, and all of a sudden we realize like, holy fuck, we've been at war in the Middle East. Like, who did this? And you ask the lead generals at the time, and they're like, Operation Enduring Freedom. I never heard of it.
I bet you if you ask any general, I'm going to use a fake word for this, but it's okay. So any general about, hey, Operation Mjolnir, if you ask them about it, like the general's currently employed right now, working in the military, they know exactly what that's about. They probably ask you why you brought up a secret term. It's not actually that. But put in that blank there, an actual term of a real operation.
For a code word.
Yeah, I know. But I like fill in the word there with what the actual operation is. If there's an active operation going on, even at a battalion level, they will know about it because they authorized it. Right?
Well, Obama did kind of run the military like that. He was like, oh man, like I don't know.
He micromanaged the fuck out of the military.
I don't know who did all those drone strikes. That's crazy. I don't know who got into an illegal war in Lebanon. That's crazy.
He watched those drone strikes inside what do you call it?
The war room. You know,
the war room.
Gaddafi died. That's crazy. Who authorized that?
I mean, he sat at the table in in that room in the ready room with some lotion and some tissue, just watching those bomb strikes. I'm sure of it. He just loved watching them. Got off to it. He loves killing people with drones. He he had most of the more drone kills than any other president, which is not surprising because drones become popular when he was. So it's not really fair. But by the way, I'm saying that jokingly. He has more drone kills because first off, drones started being used in mass during his presidency.
It'd be like, oh man, like the U.S. really upped its airplane kills in World War II, like compared to World War I. Like that's crazy how much they expanded the Air Force. Like that was unprecedented. Like. Yeah, because the Air Force didn't exist until then.
I know. I had to clarify because I didn't really show that was a joke I was making in the middle of some real statements. So yeah, that was a joke.
That is
some
funny.
people make
I don't know if I've ever thought of it like that, but it was funny.
Yeah. There wasn't drones being employed to any large degree prior to Obama, so of course he used the most drones. Yeah. Obviously, more drones were created and fielded during his presidency than any other presidency as well.
There's like a correlation there.
There's a direct correlation. So there are conservatives on our side of politics who use that as a real argument. I was attempting to use it as a joke, and I realized I said it too seriously.
All right,
anyways,
I'm back, but I heard that you were specific that you wanted to use that as a real argument.
No, absolutely not. So all my other arguments take seriously today. There's not that one. Anyways, so back to what we were talking about. The gun running scandal. Eric Holder knew about it. He was the attorney general for the administration, and clearly it was an operation big enough that cost enough money, had enough people working on it that Obama should have also known about it. And definitely Eric Holder did know about it. So the show that they were willing to lie to the American people because they wanted to avoid the political damage of, we've been giving weapons to drug cartels, and that led to people's spouses and family members being killed. That's a bad look. Let's just lie about it. And don't worry, the media will just believe our lie and not cover it at all and say anyone who's talking about it is a conspiracy theorist. But lo and behold, 4 years later, an actual investigation happens. We finally in 2016, after the election, so I guess 2017-ish, we finally got the documents showing what they knew and when they knew and who was actually doing it. And yes, even Eric Holder had to admit that the Operation Fast and Furious was briefed to the highest levels of the ATF, and he was a fucking liar.
Well, what would the alternative be? Like we know that they were lying, right? That seems evident, but. Let's run down the rabbit trail real quick. Like, let's pretend some alternate universe that they weren't lying, that Obama really didn't have any idea of all these things. I don't know if you got any more of these stories, but there's like a dozen of these little scandals that either got people killed or tried to end people financially.
Benghazi!
Yeah. So, but let's pretend let's pretend that like this is true. Like Obama just had no idea. So these are all like functions of the executive. It is the executive's responsibility to manage these sorts of things. And you have these massive operations going on that are costing. I mean, I can't imagine how much money 10,000 guns costs. That's gotta cost a bit.
At least 10,000 for cheap ones.
At least. So. You got the IRS where you've devoted entire departments, like hundreds of IRS agents. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating or being facetious. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of IRS agents that are being devoted to scouring every single Christian or right-leaning 501c3 application or existing ones and just running through them. You got Benghazi that Obama just had no idea about these military operations going on, these massive military operations going on. So I mean, if that's all true, then maybe Obama is a scandal-free president, but he's also like the most incompetent, do-nothing president that we've ever had. He just sat in the Oval Office, and the entire country was basically running on autopilot. That's what we're supposed to believe, is that this this just genius Harvard graduate And the best that he could accomplish was just having absolutely no idea what was going on in his government at any given time.
Talk about the racism of low expectations. Jeez.
Right? Yeah.
No one believes he's okay. Obama is a lot of things, but he's not an idiot. He's not. He is politically smart. And he's still a terrible person.
Yes, he's highly devious. We see that too. Getting into the prefacing some of the Obamagate stuff, you see all these kind of layers that are woven together. I'm not. We'll get into that later, but it is. They knew what they were doing, trying to make sure that there was layers covering this stuff up, that there was plausible deniability. I mean, plausible deniability was like probably they got that tattooed on like the back of their neck or something. Like that's got to be their mantra. But that they are political operatives, like in the strongest sense of that term. Obama was smart, just used it for highly devious, evil things.
So another double standard here was when Obama was president, and there was the AP journalist who did a story using a leaker. Why it was a leaker from the administration. Obama didn't like that and was spied on and was threatening charges against that AP journalist. He again was using government power, abusing government power to go after a political rival. And he did to other journalists, not just that one AP journalist. But even if he'd done one, that's enough to create a chilling effect so that no one would dare to publish another negative article about him, because the last person to do it was investigated, spied on, and threatened with going to jail.
Howitzer says he's calculated it at about $12 million for 10,000.
Okay, so I don't know what the exact amount it was. It was a ridiculously high amount. AK-15s.
Yes. The AK-60. There we go.
Still less money they spent on the goddamn F-35. Which, again, thank you, Obama.
We should have given them F-35s.
Yes.
All right. What's our next Obama scandal? I assume you're leading up to Obamagate at some point here.
Yes, I am. Well, this is all part of it, but yes, it is
everything that we've talked about since before your channel even existed. Every single second of the Trump administration has been Obamagate. I mean, it's all connected. It's like, we did very minimal preparation for this show because there's. For this particular show, there's nothing to prepare for. I mean, we would have to reiterate almost 4 years. Yeah, almost 4 years. Like the catch up for all of this is rewatch every video on Dyer's channel. Go back to all your favorite right leaning libertarian YouTubers the last 3.5 years. Watch all of that. Watch some Fox News. They certainly got it right. Go back and read some Breitbart articles. Go back through and watch MSNBC, but know that everything that they're saying is a lie. And everything the last 4 years is Obamagate, and everything the 8 years previous is just laying that groundwork for, well, he's done it before. There's motive there. There's a pattern. There's a pattern of doing these sorts of things.
Yeah, he's very comfortable with lying to the entire American people and doing it with a straight face. Benghazi is a great example. So the idea that the president wouldn't see a active, special operations thing going on is laughable. But we do know that he was watching as events were unfolding, and we do know that his leadership. So he knows exactly what's happening. If he's saying an order came down to not send help, or to not first not to send help to the embassy, but then once they did say to the embassy not to send help to the CIA annex, is he gonna they're just gonna make calls for me, or because he's seeing it happen? He's either is by doing nothing authorizing it, or they actually, because of the history of him micromanaging the military, it's more likely he was directing it himself. that the idea that he wasn't aware of what's going on or directing it is laughable. But what we know is that the military was ready and willing to send people in, and they were told to stand down.
Well, they even went in unauthorized, right? There was
Yes, they went against orders, and they went in because they didn't have orders. They went in without, like, in a far less efficient way, having to depend on local rebels. Sorry, local basic terrorists. They're very militaristic, but they're not really in control.
the good terrorists.
The good terrorists
Yay.
that like us at the moment. They don't really like us always. We had terrorists convoy them in because they wouldn't fly them in. All right? We had guys. Okay, the only reason why it wasn't a fucking massacre where more people died than already did die was because people disobeyed horrible orders from Obama and the administration to leave men to die that were serving their country. And they were watching it for hours, making the conscious decision, it's too politically dangerous that we might cause a bigger conflict if we send more people in. So let's cut our losses and let 40 people die. That was their decision. Now, a few good men stopped that from happening. But they were watching those few good men getting rockets launched at them and be under heavy fire from a much larger force when they could have stopped it far earlier. They were watching with drones.
I thought you meant, don't you mean protesters?
Yeah, they called them. So, they went on to lie to the American people and say, it was all caused by a video. The video was completely unrelated. They threw a guy in jail for making a video that criticizes Islam. I don't care how you feel about Islam, but under our laws, it's okay to criticize any religion. And I watched that video, by the way. It was mocking the things they believe. It was not calling for violence. There's no crime there. But they put that guy in jail. So they then went around on the news and said that it was protests caused by a video, and the protests existed prior to the attack. No, it was completely unrelated. It was a complete lie. That came out in investigations from Congress as well. And he went on to say, I really didn't say that. I was saying something different in the Rose Garden. And he is obfuscated and said that he didn't say that when he really did. Right? Another thing is, so that's a failure of the response at the time. That's bad enough. I would refuse to vote for or support anyone who was willing to let Americans die that were serving their country because when you could have helped them. But it's even worse than that. The ambassador who died got fucked by a crowd and murdered by a crowd of protesters. He repeatedly requested help and for them to leave because he said the area was dangerous. They needed soldiers there, and that there was talks that the terrorists were going to attack. He made multiple requests over a year, and the Obama administration and Hillary ignored them, thinking that if they put more soldiers there, it would be politically harmful to them. Because it would look like they're trying to instead of be a partner in the area, that they're trying to invade because they put soldiers in their embassy. It's fucking stupid, and they let those people die. And the reason why they couldn't defend themselves because they didn't have enough Marines there. They had very few security guys. The security that was there were the fucking terrorists that ended up attacking them.
Well, and it's it kind of goes along too with Obama's motive, or what appeared to be his motive, was stated to be his motive in a book that he wrote one time, was that he really didn't like the way America was perceived abroad. He wanted to see us weakened. He didn't like that we were more powerful than some of these nations that we entered in the Middle East. He had a desire to weaken our stance against them and to allow them to flourish. We saw that with a lot of different policies, and so that was part of the reason why he probably didn't want any security forces there. Probably, at a certain extent, he didn't really. He probably didn't mind seeing America's position weakened had the embassy gotten attacked. And we see that with the previous scandals that we mentioned, that there's just this reckless disregard for America's well-being, the well-being of individual Americans and groups of Americans, really at the behest of his political aspirations. Individuals, Americans be damned. You're just in the way.
And two more things. All right,
go ahead.
And two more things you'll see from it is that he's willing to abuse government power,
to both abuse government power to both accomplish and then to cover up the accomplishments.
Yes, and that his goals are to get political wins for himself, not to help the country. So we said a pretty good precedent here. So let's move into what is Obamagate? What is the last 4 years?
Obamagate is all.
Okay, so let's start off with the Trump.
Basically, Obamagate is actually the mirror image of Russiagate, because all of Russiagate, it was essentially has been revealed, and we kind of knew it at the time. It's essentially been revealed to be this kind of like elaborate hologram. It's just this facsimile simulation that has no bearing in reality. None of it is true. Yet it is all that we can see. So everything that we saw in Russia, for the Russiagate, every quote unquote evidence that came out, all the hearings, all the various iterations of Russiagate, because there's 3 or 4 of that. The Flynn investigation, the Mueller investigation, the House and the Senate, several investigations looking into Dodd Jr., trying to gum up the works for all the all of Trump's trying to appoint people, trying to fire people, trying to get Comey out of there, all of that stuff that we could see. Obamagate is the mirror image of that. The scandal is the fact that all of the rest of the Russia stuff exists. So every single bit that you remember of the scandal for Trump that was Russia, the real scandal underneath of it is 1-to-1 ratio. Everything that was a scandal for Trump, supposedly during Russiagate, is actually something specific that was a conspiracy. Which again, I'm using. They really muddied up the word conspiracy, but that's actually what it was. It was a large group of people that all collaborated together to accomplish a goal. That's a conspiracy. But the real conspiracy is just that background of Russiagate. Every single bit that happened during Russiagate is all a bit of the Obamagate.
So basically, the Flynn investigation and the investigations into Trump, the investigation into the dossier that were done by the FBI, it came out this week that Biden and Obama were both aware of the entire going-ons, and that they likely were involved with it, and intimately involved as well. So now the investigation into Flynn, as you may remember, was over, and then the FBI decided to continue with the investigation that already determined that he had no guilt, that he wasn't actually a foreign spy, and then tried to use that as a way to try to use that investigation to go after him and try to get him fired, to attack Trump. They were aware that of the Trump dossier that was paid for by some Republicans and Hillary Clinton, and the FBI under Obama made sure that was used as a weapon to attack Trump. So, and again, Obama was aware of that. So again, Obama's using his political power to try to sway the election for who's going to replace him. And that thing that he authorized was the groundwork for what ended up being the entire Russian investigation that was based on nothing. That was pushed off by the media as being legitimate and truthful and unbiased and completely a serious investigation based on facts the entire time, despite the fact that we know then and we know now, because it's been confirmed by multiple investigations, that there was not a single bit of evidence that Trump or anyone working under him had done anything wrong. It was all fabricated and built on the groundwork that Obama set.
A groundwork of lies. So
right now, look at the difference how the media dealt with it. Trump, Obama actually had real scandals where people died because of his inaction or actions or incompetence. That people, Americans, were attacked by government power being corruptly used to get political ends. Those are real scandals that should have got someone impeached. But the media didn't cover them at all, ignored them, called them conspiracy theorists. Then the media under Trump takes something that is a conspiracy based on no information and and put it off as the truth.
Yeah,
There's a massive difference.
Yeah, and it's I forget who said it. It might have been Grassley. It was one of like the B team Republicans in Congress. One of them said that the media. It wasn't that the media did a bad job covering it. It was the media was an active participant in the conspiracy. Like to look at them and just say, oh, it's they're just awful at their job. Like that's not realizing what happened. What really happened is they were active part of this. This whole thing does not exist but for the media's participation, because part of the scandal, part of the ability to gin up this Russia narrative was that the media would receive leaks from the administration, from the Obama officials left over in the deep state. I feel awkward using these terms because I know that they're very loaded, but they're all basically they're all been proven true this week. I mean, we knew that they were true before, but they're all double verified this week. But the deep state would leak out stuff to the media. The media would then report on these leaks, thus ginning up scandal within the mentality of the populace. But then also the people back in the deep state, the intelligence agencies, would pick up those articles and cite them as evidence for further investigation. The media was an absolutely critical cog in this whole thing. Had the media had they failed in their duty to participate in this conspiracy, it would have never gone anywhere, because there wouldn't have been anything for the conspiracy to pick back up. They wouldn't have had any reason to investigate anything.
So Obama may have been out of office, but he had swelled up the number of the intelligence officers that were working in the White House from 30 to 200. And Trump has been working to reduce those numbers and still had quite a large number of them still, the Obama holdovers that were hires to the work in the administration from the intelligence agency. They had those people still in his administration. Many of them up till now, many of them have been fired now, but for the first 3 years, definitely they were there. And those were the main source of the leaks. So those people were helping to feed the Russian investigation with leaks that were lies that were then picked up by the media and used. And they've all proven to be lies, including the Ukraine phone call. What they said about it was simply not true.
Yeah. And I think it was the Steele dossier. The FBI leaked the first half of it to the media. The media reported on it, and then they cited that report on that the media gave on it as a confirmation that it was true when they sent it back to the FISA court. It was just citing the same document twice with an extra step. But all of that stuff, again, it requires media participation.
Right. So there has been a legitimate conspiracy. A bunch of people working in tandem, and many of them were talking with each other. There's not one structure, but a lot of people working towards the same means with the same political goals.
Orange Man
and that
bad.
is to keep Orange Man bad. They didn't want him to remain in office. They were willing to try to destroy him with lies. And Obama gave him the tool to do that.
Well, what's scary too is that the media will say that too. Oh, it's not a, you're pretending that there's some kind of like shadow cabal of people. It's like, well, we're actually not saying that. We actually do agree that it's not a centralized operation. It is a bunch of semi-independent actors all pulling in the same direction, which is actually quite a bit scarier, because if it was, a centralized cabal of people, just a few specific people that were out there, making this conspiracy move, and the rest of the agencies were just kind of at the mercy of these people in charge. They didn't really realize what was going on. That would be pretty bad. But the alternative, what is likely the reality, is that it wasn't a centralized plan. It was just this loose organization of people pulling in the same direction, all having similar goals to cause as much havoc for a conservative administration as possible. Basically, what would require for that is not a small group of people, but broad cultures all across all the major government agencies, across all the intelligence agencies, thousands and thousands and thousands of bureaucrats, all employed by the federal government, all over the agencies. It requires that there be a broad culture that is accepting of what happened, which is far worse than a conspiracy of a small group of people. If I was the media, they should be, it was just a few people. It was a very small, specific team of people. There was a small group that had a plan. We found them, we got rid of them, everything's okay now. Because if that's not the case, then that means everything, the entire culture of the FBI, even down to the field agents, is all a culture of corruption. Everything in the CIA, all a culture of corruption. NSA, culture of corruption. State Department, culture of corruption. IRS, culture of corruption. All DOJ, over and over and over again. There must be just the broadest culture of corruption, anti-democracy, this idea of authoritarianism, that they know better than the American people, that the American people are, exist at their leisure, not that they are our servants. That is pervasive at every level. It can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. I guess it could be both, but it's got to be one or the other. If it's not a small group of people, then it has to have been a broad culture. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been enough manpower to keep this thing going for so long. If
you gotta believe one of two things. You gotta believe that either Obama was the most incompetent, inactive president we've ever had, or he legitimately was at the core of the genesis of an operation to first determine who is allowed to be our president. But then when that operation failed, to unseat a rightly elected president and cause chaos and violence in our country over what, because the lies they've said, that had a real impact on our society. We've had people believing that Trump stole an election, that he was actually a Russian plant, and that he was basically Hitler in disguise. That led people to hysteria and to commit acts of violence. These are the real world consequences of them trying to eviscerate our country and our freedoms.
Yeah. It's I don't like either scenario, right? It's very disconcerting for the average American, and very motivating for the crazy Americans, which there are those on both sides. The idea that either the elected president is literally an asset of the KGB, that he was hand-raised by Putin for the last 30 years, which is one of the conspiracy theories that they had, that he had been a long-term agent of the KGB since the 80s, and that we've basically given over control of the entire country to the Reds. That is extremely disconcerting. And then the alternative, which happens to be the reality, is that the country is currently being controlled by the shadow government of unelected bureaucrats that is using the awesome in the terrifying biblical sense, this awesome power of the intelligence apparatus, the country, the ability to prosecute using the DOJ, using the FBI to investigate, using the IRS to cause financial troubles, that they're weaponizing all of that amazing power or awesome power, this terrifying power, against American citizens for the crime of thinking that we still had a democracy. Either way, well, I guess democracy is it's a cute little thing that we had in the history books. Either scenario is pretty bad news for your average American, and it's something that's going to really stir up and be motivating for your crazy Americans on either side.
Someone on YouTube asked.
Those are pretty bad options there.
They are pretty bad options. Someone on YouTube asked how do we hold the media accountable, which I think is funny but true. Like, okay, it's not just the media though. We have a hell of a lot of people in government who have done a lot of really evil things to our country, like literally calling for violence and to harass people who are their political rivals in the streets. We've had people, trying, like Nancy Pelosi, trying just to stick it to Trump, trying to get people to do things that are unsafe with the coronavirus. We have people that are trying to muddy the waters just to spin everything to attack Trump rather than actually passing laws to help people. We had people who were denied for a week support. Financial support during the coronavirus relief act being passed because they wanted to just win some political victories. We have these people who, just because of Orange Man bad, they're willing to harm Americans. They're willing to not close the border when there's a very real threat that they in the past have recognized and called out the threat of not having a secure border. But because of Trump, they're willing to keep that border open with no regard to how many Americans will suffer because of it. There's a lot of people need to be held accountable, not just the media.
And they won't be. I think for that specific question on the media being held accountable, I don't. The media exists at the behest of the people that follow them. They're really the kind of the avatar of that asleep America. You got this idea of being woke. When it's usually used ironically that the people that are woke, we use it as kind of an ironic slur for them because they're the most asleep people. But you've got that kind of. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to say that you could take half of all Americans and put them in a basket of deplorables, but you've got this population of Americans that they are so locked into that media narrative. They're so polarized, and it's not even necessarily a large portion of Americans, but it's enough. It's enough to kind of keep that media apparatus going, enough to kind of make sure those journalists think, oh well, I got 1,000 retweets or something like that. It's enough to kind of keep them going. And they think that sort of stuff is what they need. And you also have these kind of wealthy benefactors to these media organizations. You look at
government grants.
Yeah, you look at like what was it, Washington Post that Bezos bought that is totally failing, and it got bought out by a near trillionaire. And even though it's losing $100 million a year, it doesn't matter. Bezos can just keep it open. And you're seeing a similar sort of thing with this kind of artificial pumping up of these media organizations. They've gone a long way. The American people have gone a long way to kind of divesting ourselves from traditional media. That's why it's failing out. There's a story this week of BuzzFeed is closing down their British and Australian offices, which is kind of funny. But you got some of these other more established newspapers that are of value, not because they provide information, but they're of value because they are pre-existing propaganda houses, which makes them valuable even as a loss leader to people with money. And they don't have any interest in being held accountable. The people that own those shares have no interest in having them be accountable. They just have an interest in keeping them as these propaganda machines that are churning out all the stuff. I mean, look at Bloomberg. I mean, it's literally the namesake of the guy that controls it that just uses it as a giant propaganda tool. They've had some real gems of articles this week during the Obamagate scandals, coming out now. But there's no way to hold the media accountable. Really, what your solution for that is to do what you're doing. Go seek out your independent content creators. That's about it. That's how you keep them accountable is you just ignore them. They're not for you anyways. They don't consider themselves for you, and you shouldn't really consider them for you either. They exist to again churn out propaganda from the super rich and send it out as kind of these are what the established these are what the approved beliefs are this week, because they change every week. It's funny looking back through some of the coronavirus articles most recently. Even over the course of a few weeks, how they totally flipped into a 180 on some of these, and that's just the most recent example. You can take any event the last 15 years, and it's the same thing. But it's basically a way for the elites and the people that think that they are smarter than you to just keep appraised of what is the updated belief system that we have this week, so that I know that I'm on the right page and I'm not spouting an out of date propaganda point. But don't really worry about keeping them accountable. They're not for you. They're not really media. They're that in name, but in what they actually are, it's not media.
Yeah. So, but best thing we can do is consume other content other than theirs, because it's not good content in the first place. Why would you want to? But then, like if you're sharing an article as a source of theirs, archive it. Why give them the clicks? Why support them in any way? Their audience is already dwindling. Like CNN, MSNBC, they show themselves to be hypocrites and liars all the time, and even to their hardened supporters, it's becoming clear. So I let them die. It just requires you to ignore them.
Yeah.
Except for when you're referring to them as archive.
Well, they're really, I guess, to the extent that they are for you, they're really the billboard of, again, what is the current belief system of the supposed elites and intelligentsia. So you know what they think that they know, and you could use that as kind of a cheat sheet for what to make fun of them for this week. Oh, really? You think Obamagate's a conspiracy theory? Ah, that's funny.
That's one way to look at
things.
It. Yeah. So the last 4 years is Obamagate. That's basically it. So anyone who wasn't quite sure what it was, that's what it is, and that's why it's trending. Basically, the revelation that he was the source.
So there's more stuff coming out. We'd said something about this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, when there was a little blip in the Flynn case before it all basically fell apart these past 2 weeks. There was a little blip that we reported on. I remember saying at the time that we'd all kind of forgotten because the coronavirus was going on. But back at the end of the Mueller investigation, and kind of just before the Ukraine investigation, the DOJ and Barr had spun up 2 different investigations into the investigators for the Russiagate to see if there was wrongdoing during the investigation. We had the Horowitz report, and then the was it Durham report. So the Horowitz report came out in late December, and that was while Ukraine was in full swing, and that was basically going to show that there was a lot of really wrongdoing stuff in the FBI, and I believe that he hadn't been finished, but he had testified as to like where he was at that point. And then the Durham investigation was still going at that point, and we kind of knew that it was going to start coming out around this time. That's when it was scheduled, looking back at it in December. But then coronavirus hit, and we all kind of forgot that this stuff was still working and churning around in the background. And so all this stuff was planned on coming out. It was anticipated months ago that this is the kind of information that would come out, because again, it's kind of funny, because you see all this information coming out, it's like, oh yeah, like I know that, like that's not new information, that's not interesting information, but you got to kind of step back and realize, no, this isn't just saying what we already know, it's the proof of what we all already know. But it's there's more coming out. I think that some of this stuff was coming out of, some of the Flynn stuff was coming out of just Flynn's investigation, right? The DOJ was trying to look into, they sent Flynn's investigation to an independent U.S. attorney. I think it was in Colorado. I'm not sure, but he's completely out of the DOJ loop. He was very independent. He was reviewing it, and based on his recommendations, they were re-reviewing the Flynn case of the DOJ, and that's where some of this stuff came out the last few weeks here, and that has been the catalyst to kind of unravel one of the key strings, because Flynn was kind of one of the key strings, which maybe I'll get back to in a second here, that was tied up in the Russiagate conspiracy theory. But you got that going on, and then you also still have the Durham report, which is still being worked on. But this is just the start of the stuff that's coming out. There's more stuff on the horizon, and as we uncover more things, like, oh wow, that's interesting. There was 39 people that unmasked Flynn for some reason. Biden was on that list for some reason. Obama knew about intimate details of a recorded phone call that Flynn was having as a representative of the incoming Trump administration. There was evidence that because of that, we now know that there was Comey was lying about stuff in public and possibly in official testimony. We know that Brennan was, and Clapper, CIA and FBI.
Comey did in official testimony when he was under oath, where he could be held for perjury. He actually told the truth, and that's why we know he lied, because he said something completely different under oath.
Yeah, but every time one of these thread gets pulled out, like 10 more pop up, and so now we know where to look at for the questions. The bigger question is, can we rely on the Republicans that are in power? Will they be pulling on those threads appropriately? Can we rely on them? I'm gonna guess no, because they're some of these things that are coming out. It's stuff that seems like it should have been obvious the first 2 years of the Trump administration, which I know it's hard to remember because they didn't do shit while they had it. But the Republicans actually had full control of the House and full control of the Senate for 2017 and 2018. And they did precisely zero things with that power. And it would seem that some of these threads that are Obamagate, that were contributing to the then Russiagate, that those should have been obvious to members of Congress, that those should have been visible things to the intelligence committees and to certain Senate committees, and that people like Graham, who's certainly tried to make himself a cheerleader during the last 3.5 years, you got McConnell, who is as resolute as the desk as he stands at, and about as interesting to talk to. They were all sitting there, they all got rah-rah, yeah, when the conservative media were saying, hey, we want to defend Trump, and they're like, yeah, we're defending Trump, we're rallying the party line, come make sure you vote for us in the midterms, yeah, rah-rah. But in reality, they were letting all this stuff kind of slip through the cracks. They weren't actually paying attention to it, or they knew about it and weren't pressing on it. When one of them did press on it, which would have been Nunes, trying to say, hey, because I think that was back in late 2017, Nunes was saying, hey, there's some funny stuff going on at the FBI. He got no backup from the rest of the Republicans. He obviously got torn to shreds in the media. He got torn to shreds by the Democrats, even so much so that 2 years later, Schiff would use his powers as chair of the Intelligence Committee to surveil Nunes's cell phone records, which is really incredible. But why at that time were some of the Republicans not getting a little bit more curious, not using the powers of the offices and the branches that they had at the time, and they just let all this stuff go? The Republicans would like to hope that you forget that they had power for 2 of the 3.5 years that this was going on, and they had transparency into some of this stuff that was going on. So they didn't do any of that at the time. I am highly concerned, and I think rightfully so, that we will not see anything really come of this on the Republican side. Certainly they're out of power now. They have a little bit of power in the Senate, but not not anywhere close to a majority or a supermajority, and they certainly don't have power in the House right now. Well, we'll see if that flips in November. But let's say it does flip in November. What are they going to do with it? We had for years the Republicans said, okay, just get us the House. We'll do something. We got them the House, and I think it was 2012. Then it was we need the Senate. We got him the Senate, and then we need the presidency. Well, we got him the presidency and the Senate and the House in 2016. They got it all, and then it was I don't know. We're just gonna sit here on our hands. The Andrew Wilkow is a great radio host. He's got to say, Democrats hold power, or Republicans hold office, but Democrats hold power, which is basically how it goes. The Republicans really and this is the establishment Republicans, and you got to remember, Dyer and I'm more libertarian. Dyer describes himself as a conservative, but neither of us would describe ourselves as Republicans, and most people don't. I mean, most of people who would have been Republicans maybe 15, 10, even 10 years ago, most of them don't actually identify as Republicans anymore. That's something that's kind of old and not appropriate anymore for most people's belief systems. And the Republican Party is different from conservatives. And that's the problem, is that we are trying to rely on the Republicans to espouse conservative values in government when that is, it's about as worthwhile of a hope as it would be to hope that the Democrats espouse conservative values in Congress. You're essentially asking for the same thing to happen, which is something that's not going to happen. So back to my original point, though, is they didn't do that. The Republicans in 2017 and 2018 had really no qualms, and if they did, they weren't willing to act on them, of seeing a out-of-control federal government weaponizing itself against political parties and the American people. They didn't really have that didn't really stir them to motion, whereas that would have stirred a conservative to motion, but certainly not the Republicans, because the Republicans, the dirty secret is that they also kind of like those powers. They kind of like to get those benefits too, which is why, again, Republican not equal to conservative. So my question again is, why should we expect that they'll do anything different moving forward? Why? Yeah, kind of the idea that YouTube asked a little bit ago is, well, how do we hold the media accountable? Like, well, how do we hold these government officials accountable? How do we hold the bureaucracy accountable when there's very few people in government right now that have any interest in holding them accountable? And I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. I guess we just need to make it clear the Republicans will be motivated by a vote. If the election is at stake, that does motivate them. So I think that probably to get this off the ground, there needs to be public will that this be done. It needs to be made clear that votes and elections are riding on this. This is what the American people want to see. We want to see this out of control federal intelligence apparatus and all these different agencies. We would like to see them reined in, and that needs to be made clear at the ballot box. And I'm sure I'm going somewhere else with that, but that's about what I got. That's the only way that we're going to get this going. Oh, I know I was going with that. The issue with getting that kind of public sentiment going, obviously, is that we don't have very much in the media that is stirring that up. So we really are reliant on social media and independent commentators and stuff like that to really get that message across, that to kind of unify the big tent, conservative tent right now is really more libertarian as time moves forward, that what is going to keep these Republicans in office. If they want to hold office, I guess that's fine, but the price to be paid to get office, to get those votes to stay in office, is that you have to investigate some of these agencies. You need to be reining in this out of control bureaucracy, this Leviathan federal government needs to be reined in, or you do not get to hold office anymore.
Yeah. So the positive spin on it, I guess, would be what can you do? What with you, the average person, what can you do to deal with this problem? So contact your current congressman. Tell them what you want investigated. Tell them what's important to you and what your vote's riding on. They actually don't get that many calls because most people don't care to be involved. The calls they do get more listened to than those who don't talk at all. Obviously, you're competing against people who are giving them money. We all know that. But if they're getting 100 calls saying that we want you to investigate Obama's connections, or we want you to do this or that, and our votes are riding on it. They translate that to mean there's probably hundreds of thousands of people who feel the same way. Then, when you're looking at who you're going to vote, it's not just the presidency. We've said it a million times. It's all the other local elections, and pay attention to who you're putting in Congress, and actually know what they believe and what their record is. Don't just vote for someone who has an R after their name. So that's what you can do to affect change at your level.
Yeah.
In any case, there's gonna be more coming out about Obamagate. There's still there's many current investigations that are turning up documents, and they're still doing interviews in Congress. So there'll be more to follow. But Obamagate is still
one of the conspiracy theories going around right now. Is there was one of these tranches of documents that was released. There is I don't understand the specific mechanics of it, and if I did understand it, it probably wouldn't add anything meaningful to explain it. But one of the tranches of documents came from all the bureaucracies. They've got forms, right? Those forms have specific things that are in them, and so one of these tranches of documents had parts of these forms, and there was other parts that were distinctively missing, and it some people that were analyzing it thought that it perhaps didn't make sense to only have released half of them unless there was another reason why that other half of them was classified or unable to be released. Because all these releases, these are all official releases. These aren't leaks, which is very different than how that's crazy that we actually get information of the federal government that isn't a leak but is actually an official release. That's pretty wild. That's very novel. That's more novel than the coronavirus is. But the theory is that this missing half possibly was reclassified because one of the things that might have caused that is if a grand jury is reviewing those documents. So it is, I don't know what the probability of it would be, but there is at least a thread of evidence that suggests it's possible a grand jury is already reviewing some of the major threads of the Obamagate, I guess, scandal. It's not, well, it is a conspiracy, but it's not a theory anymore. I guess it's a conspiracy scandal. That's a new term. You heard it here first, conspiracy scandal. But if that's true, then not only is there more investigation going on, but you don't impanel a grand jury for nothing. There's usually something that comes out of that in the realm of criminality. So that is possible that that's going on, although if that is true, that probably wouldn't be confirmed or denied for quite a long time from now. But if 3 years from now you hear about the grand jury that got Obama, you heard it here first. You know, okay, man, Fox called that way back then. And if I was wrong, you probably won't remember that I was wrong. So there you go.
Success.
Yes, I'm winning.
All right. So anything, Timberwolf, wasn't there a poll that showed most people vote Dem or Republican based on some belief, but majority don't think party will do?
There's no way. So in America, just because we have a bicameral political system where there's two defining parties, a lot of other countries you'll see that they've got 20 or 30 parties. Right now, the UK Parliament is made up of 7 or 8 parties, and they all have sub interests, Like they're all more interest group based. The way America does it, which there's pros and cons to it. I've looked at both systems. I've talked to people from the countries that have those systems, and they think ours is weird that we only have 2 main parties. I think that theirs is weird that they've got 30 main parties. There's pros and cons to both, but in America, it's those 2 parties kind of represent the broad strokes of all the interest groups. They're really the polar sides of all the interest groups, and so most people in America are, if to the extent that they're gonna vote for an average of beliefs, not really for that party. Like, again, Dyer and I said we're a lot of things. We're not Republicans. We're mostly 99% of the time probably vote into the R when we go to the ballot box. That's just how it's going to work, because on average the Republicans are going to more align with our belief system, though probably in more cases it's going to be that the Democrats are anti-aligned to our belief system. But that's usually how Americans are going to be choosing who they're voting for, rather than, you know, a coherent set of beliefs. Really, the only way that you can vote for the full belief system that you have, even in the countries that have 20 political parties, they're still not getting down to that granular level of the individual matching you individually. The only way to do that is to run for office yourself.
Yeah. But you can, even though Republican isn't like, voting Republican isn't a guarantee you're getting anyone that supports what you believe. But you can help determine at the local level who is going to be running for that Republican ticket. If there's tends to be a lot more people voting, there's a lot more people running, right? And you can help determine who is going to be successful. At lower levels, they'll then be able to go up to the higher levels of politics. So, I mean, like, a lot of people that go into Congress, they started off running for their state elections, right? And you could help them, the right person, be victorious at the state level, so they end up going to Congress eventually. Yeah. So I look at it that way.
There was a vote in the Senate this week that I think doesn't bode well for the idea that some of this will be investigated, or that there'll be consequences for the people that did wrongdoing during the Obamagate scandal. And the vote this week was Senate authorized, and there was bipartisan on both sides. It was just an even mix of Democrats and Republicans voting yes and no. It was not anywhere close to partisan votes, which is very interesting. And they just barely snuck it across the finish line. This week, the Senate, and a lot of Republicans, almost half the Republicans voted yes for this, have voted to give the FBI... I'm going to start over, just so you guys get that I'm being clear with this. This week, the Senate voted to allow the FBI the ability to look at your internet search history without a warrant.
Whoa.
And the Republicans voted for that. Lindsey Graham voted for that. Lindsey Graham, you've got, after all this shit that has gone down the last several years with these FBI scandals, and all of the scandals that's coming to light now, just this week. And this week, Lindsey Graham was like, yeah, I'll check the box to give the FBI more power.
That's crazy.
You had him joined by like 30-some Republicans. It was bipartisan support against and bipartisan support for it. Very, very even mix. It was interesting. You had, of the names that I recognized on the Republican side, because most of them are just bumps on a log. They don't ever do anything notable. You had Lindsey Graham and McConnell voted for that. Lindsey Graham and McConnell voted this week in the midst of this scandal, in the midst of the revelation that the FBI weaponized probably 100 agents and part of the DOJ to destroy and attempt to put in jail a 3-star general who served his country for 26 years and made the mistake of entering into politics and disagreeing with Obama. How dare he? Probably stole Obama's childhood while he was at it. They weaponized one of the most powerful agencies, certainly the most extra constitutional, extra outside the Constitution bureaucracies that we have, to try to destroy an individual for political purposes. That was, my God, the Founding Fathers, Jesus Christ, that was probably the thing that kept.
If you hook up a generator to them, you probably have enough power for life.
Yeah, geez. So
that's clean energy.
Yeah, you got that happening this week, and in the midst of that, in the midst of, again, the FBI had basically devoted all of its resources to, for political purposes, destroying a political adversary. And in the midst of that, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, yeah, let's give them more power.
That's insane.
Fuck off! If they're gonna be allowed to look through our internet search history, then them first. Let's get some.
They should publish it publicly.
Yeah. Let's anybody, any FBI agents out there that listen to us, if for some reason the FBI were to investigate Lindsey Graham's search history, and if for some reason, which the FBI is a pretty leaky ship, which we know from the last several years of Russiagate, if for some reason that FBI document were to leak to the media,
that would
what Lindsey Graham's search history was, that'd just be a tragedy. That'd be, my God, unmitigated tragedy. Very heartbreaking to even think about it happening. But yeah, that's the rest of the notable names. So I think there was one other, again, I think it was a B team Republican that you kind of hear about every now and then. But most of the other Republicans in the Senate that you would recognize their name, they all voted against it. So that was good to know. The ones that voted for it, I'll probably be cross-referencing that list for the next few years. Whenever I see a Republican senator saying something on TV, I'll probably pull that list back up and be like, "Were you one of the good ones or one of the bad ones?" Because I think voting, again, I can't reiterate this enough. In the context of what happened this week, the revelation of how corrupt the FBI was, you had people in Congress that were like, let's give them more power. I think that's got to be the most easy litmus test to know if they are a good or a bad person. If in the context of what happened this week, they said, yes, I vote yes to give the FBI more power, that is even... Again, that's very unconstitutional. Being able to search and seize your internet search history without a warrant. My God, that is specifically unconstitutional, which I would love to see that challenged by the Supreme Court. But
be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
Gave us $10.
Oh, big surprise. Both come out to play while people distracted with bullshit filler every
Thank you very much, Timberwolf.
day.
Yeah, it's a big surprise when government comes out to play while people are distracted with bullshit. Yep. Filter every day, which I think is trying to rhyme there. I think I probably slaughtered that. But yeah, that's got to be like the de facto test, is like whether or not you're a good or a bad person. If you're a good or a bad Republican, if you voted yes for that, I don't see how voting yes for that in that context, I don't see how you ever come back from that as like a good Republican. Be like Lindsey Graham, if he ever says anything again, just be like, Lindsey, dude, you voted to give the FBI more unconstitutional power in the midst of a breaking scandal about them abusing their unconstitutional power. Like, you need to sit down and not talk anymore, little man. Thank you.
Exactly.
I think we knew McConnell wasn't a good Republican. He just happens to be the one in charge of that ship. I don't know. So...
yeah. I never thought McConnell was a good one. He was the same one making the argument that we shouldn't go after Biden for what he's done, because because he's he's a good guy. He thinks Biden's a good guy. Like, no, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm sure this will be the.
Do you have anything else for?
Yeah, I'm sure this will be the last time they're talking about. I can't imagine anything else interesting about this topic will ever come up again. I'm sure
a lot more will come up.
Yeah, I'm sure this will be the if there's any justice to be had, this will be a ongoing conversation for about 3 years.
Yeah.
I think actually, if this was to be, just to close off, what would this look like if it was properly investigated? They spent 3.5 years weaving a broad conspiracy to undermine an incoming administration. If it takes less than 3 years to unravel all that, you'll know that they weren't doing that. They weren't trying. They were skipping steps. They weren't actually investigating it in good faith. If this was to be properly investigated, I think it would take as much time to unravel it as it took to put it into place.
Agreed. But we know the media is not going to be giving any playtime so that the people keep asking and demanding for answers. It's going to be just whether or not Congress is driven to do it on their own, basically.
Yeah, we'll probably all die from the murder hornets before they get it figured out.
I mean, this is a serious thing.
What, the murder hornets?
I keep seeing people reference it as if it was a legit threat that we're all going to die from.
You don't think the murder hornets are legit?
I think so.
So, like, I thought that COVID was, like, a reason that we should do, like, a lockdown to start off with, which we talked about that before. I still think that at the time it was still needed. I still think that, like, to a certain extent it should be, just the government's fucked it up beyond all recognition. So that's that aside. But I thought COVID was a reason to lock down. After seeing the murder hornets, I was wrong. The murder hornets are a goddamn reason to lock down.
Get some bug spray. You're fine.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, and maybe they should, to the extent that they want people to lock down, just be like, you guys can go outside. There's murder hornets out there, but you can go outside if you like. Like, if the murder hornets is not a conspiracy to keep us locked inside, then you should fucking stay inside. I thought I was scared of coronavirus. I stayed at my house for like 3 weeks at a stretch. I thought
just buy some Raid to be fine.
I thought that was a problem. I did not know about the murder hornets. That is a reason to stay inside. That is a reason to lock down the country. Fucking the murder hornets. Good God. Too bad we blew our wad on coronavirus, and we should have waited another month, and then we could have locked down for the murder hornets.
Don't worry. Some states really haven't had coronavirus hit hard yet, so they're going to have both at the same time.
maybe yeah, I was talking to my friends about this. Maybe the murder hornet venom is actually a cure for the coronavirus.
It still kills you, but also kills the virus.
Do you think the 5G will kill the murder hornets? All right, that's the show, guys.
No, it's pretty deadly stuff. See you guys on Saturday.
Murder hornets are created by 5G, confirmed. We will not be seeing you on Saturday, or at least I won't. And I think Dyer won't because his computer broke. So even if he was going to stream on his own. Yeah, even if you were going to stream on your own, definitely not now.
Yeah.
So,
it was a nice thought.
We'll be back next week. So you guys, we will be back next week during the week, but we'll also be taking off the holiday the week after. So we got 2 missing Direwolf Saturday News recaps. So we will be recapping hard 3 Saturdays from now.
Yes. 3 Saturdays. Yes. See you then.
Direwolf is out. Shaviz is signing off.